Affordable housing is certainly a vital, important issue for Austin, and it's a complicated issue. I mean, there's not a magic wand to make Austin suddenly affordable like it was when I moved here 30 years ago. I mean, tuition was a lot less expensive, but even back then, it wasn't tuition, it was the living cost in Austin. But what can you do about it? I mean, one way to do it is to try to reduce the taxes, the property taxes on homeowners, as well as the owners of property that rent to folks here in Austin. One way to do that is to try to work on school finance reform. I mean, right now, we're sending this year about $275 million of tax dollars, our tax dollars that was collected for AISD purposes. They're sent to the state, and then they're redistributed across the state to other school districts. And it's not that they don't need the money, but the state should step in and fill that gap so we can keep that money here. On average, it's about $1,000 per tax bill that gets collected in Austin and sent off. I mean, imagine what we could do with those dollars here. We could reduce the student-to-teacher ratio. We could reduce property taxes. We could reduce rents, which could have, hopefully, an effect on affordability. You can also try to do something to nudge up wages as well, and try to tackle those kind of issues to try to help with affordability. I think we need, I think most people agree that we need an integrated transportation approach with more and better transportation options. It doesn't help me if I'm trying to get from point A to point C and I get stuck at point B. I need to be able to get to those last few miles. I think supporting innovative companies like Car2Go, Uber, Lyft can help with those last few miles, but I think we need a better rail option perhaps than the one that failed last time. We need more dedicated bike lanes, and something that some of the other larger cities have been doing. In Austin's a big city now. We're number 11 in the country, even though we've always had a small city mentality, is to encourage flexible employment solutions. Houston, for example, has encouraged employers to adopt a 4 10-hour workday instead of an 8 5-hour workday. And for those workers that do adopt that and want to work that flexible time, that takes 20% of those cars off the road. It also changes the peak numbers of cars in the morning and the afternoon during traffic. It's something you can do as well. It seems like about every 10 years, our educational financing system gets declared unconstitutional. Judge Dietz did it again pretty recently, and so it's going to be a big fight in this session. So what do you do about it? And it's not an easy solution. The legislature for the last 15, 20 years has been tinkering with it, trying to figure out a way to pass muster at the courthouse, and it really hasn't passed muster at the courthouse. We need to figure out a way to provide what's called FAPE, free, appropriate public education, to all students in Texas. And how do you do that? I mean, one way is to have the state step in. I mean, Texas is at the bottom or near the bottom on per capita funding nationwide. The state needs to step in and take up more of that obligation to provide those dollars to all of the students, as opposed to just putting that burden on local communities like here in Austin. Broadly speaking, I'm a public school kid. I went to public undergraduate, middle schools, high schools. I went to UT twice. I'm a double Longhorn, if you want to call me that. Both my sisters also went through the same public school system. Both of them are graduates of UT. My folks are graduates of public schools. So I'm a big proponent of public schools. Would I like to see schools have more money, more options, reduced student-to-teacher ratios? Yes. And are charter schools a part of that puzzle? I mean, you see some parents, depending on which school district, clamoring and fighting to get into those schools. I've got good friends in Fort Worth that are thrilled that their daughter has been able to get into one of those schools. But most of the schools are very focused on certain things, arts and sciences, which are wonderful for the kids that are doing arts and sciences. But one thing that most of them don't do, from what I understand, is take care of the broad scope of students, from special education students. And I've had some experience working with kids with Down syndrome, trying to get special services, speech therapy, one-on-one counseling for those kids that need it, all the way up to your honors kids that are taking classes for college credit. And I think, that's what our public school system has to do and needs to do and should do. And charter schools typically take a slice out of that and focus on it, which is wonderful for them, but it doesn't solve the problem Texas-wide. Immigration is a federal issue. Even though the legislature sent, I think it was $800 million down to secure the border last session, and personally I think that money could have been used elsewhere more wisely. I think you need to give immigrants a pathway to citizenship. I know you're talking about the enforcement issue. I was a prosecutor for over 20 years, and one of the biggest concerns is if you blindly try to enforce federal immigration laws when you're pulling somebody over for running a red light, they may be concerned if they have a concern about that, and you've got a chase on your hand. You've got public danger at that point. And you've also got immigrants that may have an unsecure status here, not trusting our police officers or the legal system, and so they get shut out. They can get abused, not paid, beat up, and they won't report it to the local police officers and to our sheriff. And we need them to do that. We need the system to work. So I'm in favor of making sure that there's a good relationship between that community and the Austin police force. And I think immigration is more of a federal issue than a state local. There's an immediate conflict, and that poses the problem and costs taxpayer money. House District 49, the Republican's not running, so whoever wins the Democratic nomination will most likely win the seat. There may be a Libertarian candidate or an independent running. But I don't think it needs to be an empty seat. I don't want to, if elected, I would not want it to be an empty seat. I think that you can work with Republicans when you're focusing on issues as opposed to politics. I mean, a good example, my wife's family is from Arkansas. My father-in-law is a retired school teacher, been a Democrat for a long time. So we can actually, when we're in Arkansas visiting for the holidays, we can actually talk politics and issues and religion. My folks are from Houston, and they're a lot more conservative. And so when we're in Houston, we can't talk politics, but we can talk issues. And I find that when you're focusing on transportation, education, you can cross the aisle. I think you can look for long-term solutions when you're trying to focus on those issues, as opposed to the political side of it. And I think that's what whoever is elected to the seat needs to do. I don't think there's one particular issue. I know we've touched on 3 or 4 issues so far. One particular issue that defines what needs to happen in Central Austin. I mean, it's a big city, it's complicated. If I had to pick one, I would say I would fight to try to keep more of our tax dollars here, and that goes towards getting more transportation dollars state, because we got a very congested system. I mean, I-35 is one of the most congested, if not the most congested interstate highways in the nation, and Mopac is not much better. I live right next to it. I think we need to get more of the education dollars from the state staying here. So if I had to say what would be my first bill, it would be to fight to keep those tax dollars here. 6 of us are lawyers. So if you don't like lawyers, or if you think the lawyer would be lousy for the job, you have one choice. Mr. Fisher, I think he's 24 years old. We were at an event not too long ago, and he was talking about his debt when he graduated from UT last year or a couple of years ago, and I started trying to remember how much my debt was when I graduated from UT about 24 years ago. But why? What makes me different? I'm actually the oldest candidate running, a little bit of my mid-40s. I'm the only one with judicial experience. I've been a judge since 2014. Also lived and worked here for 30 years. For 22 years, I've been an attorney representing students, families, and individuals, trying to help them navigate the legal system. So those are some of the things that help me stand out from the pack.